Hey guys, I just made a video, talking about the positives of Game Pass, singing its praises, at least from the consumer point of view. But everything isn't, sunshine and dandelions and rainbows regarding Game Pass. There is a very dark side to it, at least from, an industry standpoint. And I wanted to talk about that today as well, just because I do think it's important to touch on both sides. And of course, I'm referring to this idea of shutting down studios, most likely due to sales not being what they are. And it should be no surprise to anybody that games, that are day one Game Pass are not selling well. We now have confirmation that Black Ops 6, the new Call of Duty this year, will be day one Game Pass. I think we've all speculated that for quite a while, but we do now have actual official confirmation of that. And I have no doubt that that's going to result in millions of copies not being sold for Call of Duty, right? I have no doubt that a lot of people on Xbox and a lot of people, myself included, over on PC are going to have no interest in dropping the $70 and paying for Call of Duty when they could instead do the $10, a month for Game Pass, especially with something like Call of Duty where even my most hardcore COD friends are usually completely done with the year's Call of Duty within 3 or 4 months. Spending $70 for a game you're going to play for a few months, you're going to unlock all the weapons, you're going to grind out your camouflage challenges and get your, turbo dweeb, space or obsidian or whatever camouflage, and then you're going to be basically done with the game. And so it shouldn't really be any surprise to people that these games are selling less, right? That's why I talk specifically about Hellblade 2, and it's a perfect Game Pass game because it's 5, 6 hours long, and it shouldn't really surprise anybody that the game, only has a peak concurrent players of 3,000 or 4,000 on Steam because the vast majority of people are just going to play it the smarter way over on Game Pass. But what does this really mean for the future of gaming? Because since gaming has really started, we've judged the success of a release by how many copies it sold. And now Microsoft is trying to do something different here with utilizing the day one releases to get people to subscribe to Game Pass. Just doing some quick research online. Apparently, Phil Spencer has said that they've put well over $1 billion into Game Pass. It's finally at a profitable point where they say it's around $230 million of profit, which may sound like a lot, but it's really not when you consider putting $1 billion in, right? That is just an insane amount of money to be putting in, right? And I also found some information that says that the majority of people, now, of course, this could literally just be 51% of people. It didn't give any advanced stats, but it said the majority of people who subscribe to Game Pass do it in a full subscription, so like a year base. And I really find that surprising because, I thought for the longest time, most people would do what I do, which is where you just get Game Pass for a month every now and then when a game comes out that you're particularly interested in. For me, I'm like, oh, another Crab's Treasure's out. Okay, I'll pick up Game Pass for a month and try it out. Oh, Persona 3 Reload is out. All right, I'll pick up Game Pass and play through it. Same thing with, Hellblade 2. And this is actually the strategy that got me into Game Pass way back when I upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10 in 2019, specifically because Outer Worlds was going to be a day one Game Pass release, and I was very excited to play that. I was like, oh hell yeah, I'll just get Game Pass then, and I'll play it for. At the time, I think Game Pass was only $5 on PC, so I was like, dude, I could pay $5 and I could play the $60 game. That's awesome. And, especially at that time, it was like if you play one $60 release, that covers an entire year long subscription of Game Pass. So it was a no brainer. Now it's like $10 a month. So it's a little bit steeper, but with games also being $70, releases, you really only need to play like two full price games. And you've basically, made your money back, you could say. you've even saved a little bit of money. So I think it's kind of an interesting business model, but the question does remain, and I think the question a lot of us have is how good is this for the industry? Because, Phil Spencer can say, oh, it's profitable and it's great for us, and we have, millions and millions and millions of subscribers on Game Pass, all he wants. But then you look at the actual actions, right? You know what they say, actions speak louder than words. You look at the actions of the studio, and they're out here closing Arkane Austin. They're closing Tango Gameworks, despite the fact that High Five Rush, released and it was a banger and it was positively reviewed and it was nominated for and it even won some awards, right? And you wonder, okay, well, if Game Pass is so successful and they don't really care about these individual sales anymore because they care about driving Game Pass subscriptions, then why are you closing all of these studios? Especially after saying like, "Oh my god, we're so proud of Tango Gameworks. We're so proud of Hi-Fi Rush. This is great. This is the exact type of game that we need over at Xbox. These artistic indies." And then they just completely go back on that and close the studios. I think it's a very real worry. And day one Game Pass is kind of an interesting thing from a developer's point of view because everything that I've read and heard through interviews is essentially Microsoft will offer an astronomical amount of money in a lump sum for day one Game Pass. And most of the time, this lump sum will completely cover all of the development costs of the game. So it might seem like, a no brainer. If you're a dev team, you can just take the guaranteed fat sum of cash that Microsoft's going to dump into your, on your lawn, and you can pay all of your devs and, you've at least broke even from it. But then you're also missing out, right? You're playing it safe, but you're missing out on how much money could you make if your game does blow up and everybody has to buy a copy of it? They can't just play it on Game Pass. And this is why I think it's kind of going to be interesting with Call of Duty coming to Game Pass, is because we're really going to see how a big release is impacted by being day one Game Pass, because we haven't really had that before. We have not had a game that is like every single release we know the sales numbers of, and now it's on Game Pass and we're going to be able to see the updated sales numbers, right? We've never ever had that before. But now with Call of Duty, I mean, we know roughly every year it's published, and there's tons of articles written about how many millions of copies sold for the newest Call of Duty. Sorry if you hear Momo freaking the fuck out. He's going insane right now. He's got the zoomies or something. But we know every year how many millions of copies of Call of Duty sell. And so we're going to get to see exactly how that number is impacted when it comes to it being a day one Game Pass. And I gotta say, while I do love Game Pass from a consumer POV, and at the end of the day, like I said, I think as a consumer, you and me, unless you're like a game dev watching this, which I really doubt, but you're probably a consumer, and you and me, we should not be concerned about the logistics of a gaming studio. We shouldn't be thinking, "Oh my god, should I purchase Hellblade 2 for $50 just so that, Ninja Theory can get some of that money back and hopefully Microsoft won't close Ninja Theory?" No, you shouldn't worry about that because you're a consumer. Momo, knock it off, brother. You're freaking out. You shouldn't worry about that because you're a consumer. It's not your job to worry about that. That's the guys in, logistics. That's the marketing guys, right? We don't own stock in the companies, so it doesn't really matter to us. Sure, in a perfect world, it would be great for Tango Gameworks, for example, to make more games. But at the end of the day, my $50 is way more important to me than my $50 is important to Microsoft. That's how I see it, at least. So for me, I'm going to do my damnedest to save as much money as possible, and in the case of, something like Hellblade 2, that means playing it on Game Pass instead of buying it for $50. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. If you want to be that person that white knights for the corporations and for the devs and stuff like that, and you want to buy your games, that's awesome, dude. More power to you. But for me, I'm all about being able to play the game for the least amount possible. And so whether that means I'm playing it on Game Pass or, even getting a CD keys discount on it or something like that, I'm going to find the best deal possible. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that there is a very real worry from an industry perspective of, wow, our game is day one Game Pass. That's really going to be impacting our sales. And yeah, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Are you pro Game Pass? Are you fans of it? Do you think, like me, that you're just going to play the game for the cheapest way possible? Or are you more on the side of you're going to buy these games, you're going to support these devs, you don't want to see another Tango Gameworks, which I'm going to be honest, I think all of us could have bought Hi-Fi Rush, and I think it absolutely still would have been closed down. But anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see all of you in the next video or stream Rooney. Bye bye.